Hey everyone, Warts here. I'm very sorry this is so late. I have been dealing with a lot in life, and with the new World of Warcraft expansion dropping, put a lot of time into that. The job hunt, I've started to see an uptick a little bit in interview requests, so I've been trying to manage those. Been doing job hunt, family birthdays, family gatherings. A lot of birthdays in March in my family, so we are kind of like figuring ourselves out basically on all of this. So finally getting around to this. So this we're gonna start with voice play. I have Jeff's latest solo coming out later, and yes, I've seen the short where he teased the dwarves were coming soon. I know that video is up on the Patreon now. Of course, I'm not part of the Patreon just for reasons I discussed many times before. But so I'll be looking for that one on YouTube. Obviously, anytime the dwarves come out, it's something that I'm interested in. I mean, his current three dwarf songs are among my favorites. But anyways, we're gonna get into the voice play latest. Obviously, they're coming off the K-pop Demon Hunters medley with Grace Kinsler, which is one of my favorite videos of theirs in quite a while, from both a music and a visual standpoint. But today we're getting David Archuleta and voice play "A Little Too Not Over You." This is an acapella arrangement. Now, I don't know a lot. Excuse me. I don't know a lot about David Archuleta. I know that he's an artist, so I'm assuming this is one of his songs. And they just, one of the guys probably helped rewrite it for um, acapella purposes. So I don't know much of anything about this. So it's going to be, again, completely fresh artist. I don't listen to a lot of quote unquote mainstream music. I'm into my acapella arrangements. I listen to my video game soundtracks. I listen to my EDM. And then there's like a few bands from my childhood that I, my teen and high school years that I listened to a lot. I'm still very much stuck in like 2004 uh, when it comes to the stuff that I listen to on the daily. So forgive me for not knowing Mr. Archuleta, but I'm sure that this is going to be as interesting as we think it is. And so we're going to gather this up. So for those of you that have never seen one of my videos before, welcome in, by the way. For those of you veterans, welcome back. It's good to see you. But the way that I do my videos is that I will actually watch this all the way through, no stopping, no pausing. I actually will mute this microphone because any words that I say, I don't want to interrupt my initial reactions. And then I will do a second listen through that we will then talk about all the things that I think are cool, interesting, neat, or get broken, that I think are fun to talk about. So that's the way that I do these videos. I try to be good about chaptering them out. I'm not always efficient at doing that. Sometimes I forget to go back and do that, but I'll try to chapter those out for those that don't care about specific things. So yeah, that's how I do my videos. I'm just a guy that likes to react to these videos. For those that don't know me, I am not a professional. I just do this for fun. Took a lot of music comp classes in college, which was now, I'm further away from college than I think that I am. I graduated college almost 15 years ago now at this point. So yeah, a lot of those lessons have stuck around just because I'm passionate about it, but I don't actually have any like professional experience to fall on. So let's dive into this. This is David Archuleta and voice plays "A Little Too Not Over You." Let me make sure all my volumes are up so we can hear this.
You never cost my money at all. That's what I tell myself. What we had is come and gone. You're better off for someone else. It's for the best, I know it is. But I see you sometimes. I try to hide what I feel inside, and I turn around. You're with him now. I just can't figure it out. Tell me why you're so hard to forget. Don't remind me I'm not over it. Tell me why I can't seem to face the truth. I'm just a little too not over you. Not over you. Memories supposed to fade. What's wrong with my heart? Shake it off, let it go. to try to hide what I feel inside. And I turn around, you're with him now. I just can't figure it out. Tell me why you're so hard to forget. Don't remind me I'm not over it. Tell me why I can't seem to face the truth. I'm just a little too not over you. Maybe I regret everything I said. No way to take it all back. Yeah, now I'm moving on. How I let you go, I'll never understand. I'll never understand.
Why you're so hard to forget, don't remind me I'm not over it. Tell me why. Well, I can't seem to face the truth.
I'm just a little too not over you. I'm not over it. Tell me why I can't seem to face the truth. And I really don't know what to do. Yeah, just a little too not over you. Not over you. Yeah.
Okay. Very fun video, actually. So again, I've never heard that song. I don't know much about David Archuleta's music. So for me, the vibes that I got of it, believe it or not, like for this song, remind me a lot of Casey and JoJo's All My Life. Like that, very much that. It's not true R&B like Casey and JoJo are or were, but it was definitely a song that gave me that same vibe, you know. And most pop love songs always have like an R&B, somewhat of an R&B quality to them, like the true like love songs. And you saw like with the way that I was motioning my beat, it's actually not the tempo, that's the halftime tempo with the way I was nodding my head. But it's definitely a situation where like it uh gave that same vibe. One other thing that I noticed about this video, which is just funny, and I'll kind of point it out a couple of times as we do our second watch. Um, it's rare that I think that there's a voice play video where the stillest hands belong to one Jeff Castellucci. Like I think there like the first half of the song, I didn't see his hands moving at all, and for the rest of these guys, like their hands were going all the time. So it's really funny. I just wanted to point that out because I had noticed it in the middle of it and go from there. Um, so anytime Voiceplay does these like pop covers, they either stay fairly close to what the original song was, you know, and I think of something like I'm trying to remember the name of the song now. Damn it, it's not coming to mind. I'll remember it. I'll probably throw it in the comments or something like that. But they either stay pretty close to the original and just take the music and turn it into a cappella with some minor creative twists, obviously, to make the human voice work over an instrument. Or they do something like Enemy, where they take it in a kind of a completely new direction with allusions to how the original works. Like in Enemy, if you remember, like the very first part with Ellie, when I wake up to the sound, the silence of the round. You know, that right there is very much the like original. They did that first chorus was very close to the original song, and then once they hit the chorus, that's when it all went out into a different direction in terms of the way that Voiceplay took it versus what the original was. And I like when they do both, honestly. Like Casey and JoJo, that's the one I was thinking of. Actually, All My Life was very close to how the original was. It just would tweak to make the human voice work. But it was pretty close to that. And so I like both for different reasons. Rag and Bone Man's Human was another one that I think they did a good job of sticking very much to the tone of the original. But then, like I said, like something like Enemy or Dream On, they did something very different with. They've done like very different directions, obviously, with some Christmas classics like Mr. Grinch. I'll remember that one. So they do like they're very good at kind of doing both approaches, which is awesome. So yeah, I'll be curious. Let's go back on a second listen through. There's not a lot I don't think we need to talk about. This is just a very smooth, cool production. I do like this warm to cool lighting setup that they did in the background here. And this giant picture frame, which kind of impressed that they got it to stand and not see like what I imagine is the arms keeping it on the other base, unless there's some other technique that pops up in the behind the scenes that I didn't see. But yeah. I really love that actually, this beginning build. I really do. I think it is. I think it's one of those things where it's like, it really reminds me of tapping back into my marching band, concert band from high school things. Like, there's a couple of songs that we played where, it's a little bit longer than what this one was because, instruments can have to build a little bit differently before they start to sound terrible. But like, I love how we start off with just David, and then we get Ellie jumping in, and then Caesar jumping in, and then we get this soft something like that. And then we end with Jeff, and then they build, and it's all kind of around the tone of over you, not over you. It's kind of what they're all saying in a sort of a textual way. So I really like that from that perspective. And then it just builds up into this nice little moment right here at the end. Wow. Really like that. And then we get into our initial lead line with David here.
It never cost my money at all. That's what I tell myself. What we had is come and gone. You're better off for someone else. It's for the best. I know it is. But
what's really interesting about this song is I talked about how it has like this all my life type R&B soul style feel. It doesn't get there actually until the chorus, and then it maintains that the rest of the way. Here in this very beginning, it's actually super pop song. Like, this sounds like pick your local radio station or satellite radio that plays the pop hits, and you probably hear this style 28 hours a day, even though there's only 24 in the day. You hear this song, this similar style of start in almost every single pop song that plays. So it's really funny to me.
I see you sometimes. I try to hide what I feel inside, and I turn around.
Heard you, Jeff. Round. Subtle. It's subtle, but it's there. He does it a few times if you really want to listen to it. But it's not the point. It's not to highlight that. It's meant to add gravitas and depth to the harmony.
With him now, I just can't figure it out. Tell me why you're so hard to forget. Don't remind me.
It's funny. Hands are going, hands are going, hands are going. His hands go when he's beatboxing, and he's standing here. Like, you can see this hand not moving. Now, obviously, you can't see his right hand behind Ellie here. And there is a point later on where it's going. But, like, when he's singing, he's usually one of the more handsy folks. Like, he's always doing motions like this or doing scoop motions like this, kind of conducting himself in his own mind. And he's not. It's really funny.
I'm not over it. Tell me why I can't seem to face the truth.
I love that bass line. Something like that. Really, really fun bass line. I love bass lines that seem very, very simple, but have a nice little repetition to them. I'm someone that like high melodies and like lead lines and stuff like that never were the stuff to catch my attention. I've always been the guy that's much more interested in what drives the heartbeat of a song. And in this section, because our percussion isn't super driving, it's actually very soft. Your bass line is actually what is your momentum right now. The underlying foundation that everything builds off of in terms of tempo and kind of holding everything together. If you listen to that here.
I can't seem to face the truth. I'm just a little too not over you.
Now the percussion picks up in this section and it takes over that sort of underlying foundation, motivation, driver. It's really fun how Lane and Jeff always play off of each other and stuff like these. And we'll talk about who wrote this here, and we'll check the credits after I do this second listen through because I forgot to do them earlier. Apologies. But I love how these two have always played off of each other and being able to trade who's kind of the underlying momentum of the piece. You know, most of the time it's Lane, just because percussion naturally is, because it's not musical in the number of notes that it does. It's, you know, mostly sounds and things like that. Even though there is a lot of musicality involved with it, it's less from a note standpoint and more from a rhythm standpoint. That's where the musicality of drums come in. Listen to like a DCI drum line, like go look up Boston Crusaders 2022. Their drum line, if you want to go check out that video, if you can stand traditional marching band drums, you'll hear all of the rhythms and stuff like that like can drive a piece. Really, really good stuff on that front. So usually because of that, it's drums that are always like this underlying, they're always the foundation in a lot of ways. But in vocal music and in more traditional pop music, you can have things like your bass guitar or your rhythm guitar be the things that drive the piece forward, and let things like your percussionist be more of add flavor, or in some cases they get to show off and kind of be featured while the bass guitar or rhythm guitar, or in this case a bass vocalist or even a baritone vocalist like Caesar, for example, can sometimes be, okay, here we're the thing that's now going to keep all this together, and our percussionist is going to show off ridiculous, stupid things, whatever the case may be. So it's always fun to watch that interplay between Lane and Jeff, who happen to be the two tallest members of Voiceplay, by the way, which is always funny to me. I always love how they've ended now like the major phrases. Wah. I've noticed it's been in there a couple of times now. And then we get into our Caesar lead line. Happy belated birthday, by the way, Caesar. I saw that he turned 36 recently, I think. So shout outs for that. I want to compliment, before we get into this, and hopefully you'll hear it after I explain this, I think Caesar's voice is really starting to develop in a way that is going to make him a star. Not that he isn't already, but like in a way that like he should be recognized more across the general industry for just how good he actually is at this. Like his talent is really starting to define itself and bring itself in to its own. He's really you can tell he's really getting comfortable in what he wants his voice to be, and his range has gotten excellent. He obviously can hit, I've seen him hit some pretty low baritone into high bass level notes in some of the shorts and stuff like that. And obviously we know he can belt with folks like Ellie, who are a really high tenor. He can belt with the best of them. We saw that in the K-pop Demon Hunter soundtrack. I didn't point it out at the time, but I think it was in Soda Pop. He had an incredible long belt in that one. And, you know, so we see that. And he does that a couple more times in here. Not as long as the one there, but he can, you know, we obviously know that he can do that. So we're seeing his range really start to expand in really fun ways. And I think the strength of his voice is really starting to find its place in the being of Caesar. And I really just want to shout that out before that. And I think it's really well honed here.
What's wrong with my heart? Shake it off, let it go. Didn't think it'd be this hard. I should be strong, moving on. But I see what sometimes I try to hide what I feel inside, and I turn around. You're figure it out. Tell me why.
See? It sounds. This is going to be, I think, a bad way to describe it, but it's the word that I keep coming back to. It sounds mature. Not that he's not. I mean, Caesar's voice has always been really well developed, but there's a little bit of maturity to it that I like. If I go back and watch some of the early stuff that he did, you know, you go think of like Hoist the Colors or um, you know, even, you know, If I Were a Rich Man, Rich Woman, even something like the Bruno songs, Hellfire. You look at those songs where he has lines, and there's still like this almost like kid quality to it. And in this song, there's really like a level of maturity. Like it's almost found its strength. Again, not that it wasn't strong before, but it's a different kind of strength. So I just wanted to shout that out, and I really, really love it actually. It makes me excited to see what else he, you know, obviously he's been working and training and being with this group probably has challenged him in ways that, you know, he wasn't even expecting. But like, I just feel like we've hit a new stage of Cesar de la Rosa, and it makes me very excited to see what he's going to be able to do with it, because he hasn't lost that sassiness, that, you know, the things that makes him him, and why we love Caesar and why we love him being part of this group. I mean, I think I've heard before the other members of Voiceplay say that he keeps them young, you know, because he is, I think he's probably 7 or 8 years younger than the next closest person. I think, you know, Jeff and Lane are in their early 40s, I think. So, or now probably mid 40s, I guess. So like, there's just this aspect to what he brings to the group that is really nice. And I think that now that we're seeing what I feel at least is this sort of next stage of his vocal career, I'm really excited. I just want to point it out.
You're so hard to forget, don't remind me. I'm not over it.
So I pointed out earlier about talking about how Jeff was less handsy. I mean, it's less up in the chest area. Now I can tell by the way his shoulder's moving, particularly his right shoulder, that he's probably doing his normal moves like this that he always does. Did you see him do? But I would um I would definitely, I still find it really funny. I almost lost my train of thought. Sorry, ADHD took over because I was thinking about three things at once. Um, but I still find it really funny that like the guy that I've seen him in like regular shorts, and how he, like in like the cooking challenges that he does with Lane and stuff like that, like how he's uh like Jeff is very active with his hands. I think, you know, with a name like Castellucci, I imagine there's Italian heritage in his family line. So he's always been very active with his hands. So to see him and even in his like his other covers, you know, obviously we will watch the other one here in the video that comes out tomorrow on this drop. I'm sure that'll be going. But even something like, for example, Big Iron, because we're going to be diving into his latest country music cover, Big Iron. Actually, one of my favorite songs. Even though I don't like country music, his cover of Big Iron is one of my favorites, and it's one of my son's favorites. Even that one, I remember he's like very handsy. Even while he's sitting in the chairs, leaning forward, leaning on his elbows and stuff like that, he still finds ways to do it. So it's just really, really funny to me.
Tell me why I can't seem to face the truth. I'm just a little too not over you. Maybe I regret everything I said. No way to take it all back. Yeah.
Really love that. I'm assuming this was done a little bit in the audio mixing, but I really love how Caesar's voice is front and forward, and then we get David and Ellie matching him, you know, word for word in the background text, but harmonizing in a way that adds depth to this line. I really like the way that was. I'm assuming that was probably done in mixing to make sure that Caesar's voice was a little more forward in the mix and stuff like that. There's a really cool moment there from like an engineering standpoint, I'm assuming.
Now I'm moving on. How I let you go, I'll never understand. I'll never understand. Yeah.
Was that Ellie back there?
I'll never understand.
Yeah, that was Ellie back there. Ellie on that super high note. Also, I love, obviously, you can tell David is performed at concerts because, as any musician will tell you, movement that you make does have to be exaggerated in some ways because, and we were told this in high school band, and I still will tell this to any performer that does stage performances or field performances. In one, and I mean, and I'm sure like even theater kids will tell you the same thing. You don't perform for the people in the front row. You perform for the people that are the furthest away from you. And so it's one of those things where like you develop a habit when you perform in stadiums or music halls and stuff like that to make your movements big and dramatic because the people that are further away see smaller silhouettes of you, which means that your smaller movements don't look like they happen. And that's just the way physics and vision, field of vision work. So when you do these bigger, more exaggerated moves, it looks a little more silly sometimes to the people that are closest to you, but the people in the back, it seems pretty normal. That's what I think David is doing here, especially with this move, which is funny. I just always like to point it out because it was something that that was the one thing that I was always good at from like when I was in high school drumline. I was not the most talented drummer. I was good, but I was not necessarily, I was probably even borderline great in a lot of eyes, but I was never the best. I had at least two people that were always seen as the better pure drummers of me, and then that I was in the same grade with, and then there was always probably at least two across the line that were always considered better than me as well. But the one thing that I always had on them, and my drum instructor always pointed out, is that I was always the best overall performer because any movements that we would do, any choreographed type movements we would do, I would always do them bigger. And granted, I was a small kid. I had to do them bigger. I didn't cross 100 pounds until close to the end of my freshman year of high school. I didn't hit 110 pounds until my junior year of high school. I was a very small kid. I'm only 5'6", and I didn't hit that height until I was almost 18. So, so in some ways, I had to exaggerate movements more because I was so small. So in order for them to be seen, I had to do them bigger. But one thing that my band drum instructor and my band director told me early on was that you perform to the people in the back, like that, and that's why he stood up on the very top step of the bleachers all the time. And he said, I want to be able to, and he goes, when we're doing like a full run, I want you to be able to, sit down and act as if I'm your parent or your friend watching in the stands and I'm expecting a show. So yeah, that's where those ideas come from and why I'm so keen on it and why I pick it out all the time. It's because it's something that I feel like I've actually had to tone it down over the year. And on a YouTube video, I don't have to be super over the top because the camera's right here. But it's just something I always like to point out, and I didn't want to get on a tangent about it. Sorry. So one thing about this section, it's a very common bridge section where there's not a lot of text and you're doing a lot of vowel sounds. The one thing that kind of struck me on the second listen through actually is David's range throughout most of the song has been pretty limited. If I recall correctly, in some ways that's generally by design for pop singers, because especially if they're planning on doing tours, because if you put in a bunch of like low notes or high notes that strain your range, you're gonna hurt your voice over the course of a 3, 6, 9 month long tour, whatever the case may be. It's like the joke, there's a running joke with Taylor Swift, like most of the songs sound the same. It's because she generally writes within her most comfortable vocal range. It's not that she can't go high or low. I've heard her go really high and really low, and she has a song or two where she does those things. But you think about the fact that every single show on like the Eras tour is a huge, massive success. Not just from a showmanship standpoint, but a lot of people say she sounds just as good as she does on her albums. And that's because she's very smart about how she protects her own voice, not just in the day of the shows, but in the way that she writes her music. And so I kind of get that same vibe from David here, that he wrote this song to kind of stay in a very, very comfortable range. But in this section, in this acapella arrangement that he's not going to be doing every day on like a little show tour or whatever the case may be, there were little extensions that were made here. We got to see a little bit of his lower range. We get to see right here at the end, before we get into our Jeff lead line, a little bit of his higher range. And it's pretty good. So I just want to compliment that. Let's go back a few seconds so we can get our Jeff line.
So hard to forget, don't remind me. I'm not over it, tell me why.
I really love the way that Jeff walks down lines like this. And he starts pretty high for a bass, borderline baritone range with the tell me why you're so hard to forget. And then it dives down until he hits this type note down there at the bottom, that kind of thicker chest note. And you can tell that he really engages with it really well because of the way that it sounds. It's not breathy, it's power. So he's really engaged when he hits that note, and then he climbs right back up into the next one before we hit our next line here, which is a full octave, not, I don't know, full, but it's a full step down for sure. And then he hits this fat subharmonic. Sounds very similar to the fade to black note, if I'm thinking of it off the top of my head. So G1 in subs, which, I mean, Jeff has gotten to a point where he can start hitting some G1s in chest, but it's not common. So I think it's a G1 sub, but it, pulls right into the next line. So just like very, very cool stuff from Jeff, where it's not anything that's always going to be sexy, but it shows really, really good vocal control and just the level of control that he has over the registers that he has. And I love the way that we go down, and then he goes down into that, hits that note, resolves up, and then stays at that level and goes down here again. And then we get back into our chorus here. That's going to be really cool. I just like the way that it was done.
Well, I can't seem to face the truth.
I'm just a little too not over.
I do love that they pull everything back out and it's not over you in that harmony before they hit this drop here at the end with Lane's drums, and we get into our last like big chorus section. Big belt, drum fill, classic. It's good for a reason every time.
Tell me why I can't seem to face the truth.
Again, Jeff with that ba-dum-dum-dum.
And I really don't know what to do, yeah. Just a little too not over you. Not over you. Yeah.
We end on this very staccato ending that just hits the wall and stops, which is not something that Voiceplay does a lot of, but pop songs do. Because in some ways they're designed, the ending of pop songs a lot of times are designed for two things. One, easy transition on radio to go into whatever the line is, the DJ line is. And B, at shows, it gives a very clear indication to the audience, this is over. Here's your chance to make your voices heard and shout and scream and do whatever. And then we're going to transition to the next song in the set. So, but very, very interesting video. Like I said, it's really always fun to hear Voiceplay do pop songs because they can always approach it in a couple of different ways. And I think the approach they took to this one was fun. It was interesting. There's a lot of cool things going on. Not much technically, I think, to talk about because generally speaking, pop songs don't necessarily have a ton of technique that I think is fun to talk about. But bigger and broader ideas when they do these types of songs are always more fun for me. So apologies if we didn't get into like nitty gritty details. I've never been the guy to do that. I generally talk a more 30,000 foot view on these songs. So hope you enjoyed that. Until the next video, hope you all stay safe. Hope you enjoy yourself. You're having fun. You keep on listening to great music. We'll see you next time.